Okay, welcome to the video. Sig Sauer Guy here, and this is going to be a video on a new product that the Sig Armorer is going to be releasing next week, and it's what they're calling the Superstrut. So it's a new hammer strut that they have redesigned and upgraded, which I have installed in this 228, and we'll be comparing it to the factory strut, which is installed in this 226. So the four areas of improvement. One is the notch that was cut out in the upper portion of it to prevent it from contacting the safeties in the SAO pistols. And then the spring shoulder has been redesigned. The lower leg on the hammer strut has also been recontoured. And then the material itself has been upgraded and then a nice finish put on there. So let me remove this one from the 228 and then we'll talk in more detail about these modifications. Okay, modification number one to do with the upper strut area. So I'm going to overlap these so we can see better what I'm talking about. And as you can see, there's a notch cut out in the top of the Superstrut. The reason why that notch is there is because it's been found that with this stock strut, when you pull the trigger all the way to the rear, it actually contacts a crossbolt that has to do with the safety mechanism. What that's causing, now this happens every single trigger pull, and what's happening is it's making the safeties loose, and then it actually can cause it to fail. Robert Burke posted a video this morning where he had samples of the springs that he's collected that have actually failed because they broke. So that is area number one. And then the way you can test for this is, I don't have any single action only pistols, so I'll just demonstrate using this one. When you pull your trigger all the way to the rear, it's got that little extra bit of play there, okay? And if you're pulling your trigger all the way back in that area and you see your safety moving, well, that's because the hammer strut is contacting that crossbolt, okay? So that is the first area of improvement on this hammer strut. Okay, the second area that's been modified is the spring shoulder on the strut. That is the area here that your spring rests against as it's installed in the pistol, okay? That's important because if you take a look at yours with your grips off, you can see how it's naturally crooked anyway. So re-angling of that spring seat helps straighten the spring out, okay? I will post a picture in this video that shows the Superstrut and the factory strut with the same spring and the same pistol, and you can clearly see the difference in the bend of the spring between the two side-by-side pictures. So if you take off your grip, you'll notice that your spring is kind of like this, as it's even, whether it's cocked or decocked, it's usually got a bend in it like that, and depending on how old your pistol is, I mean, it won't even roll across the table because there's such a bend in it. These are new springs here from a kit that I got. So what this is re-angling is doing, and you can kind of see the leg of that hammer strut where it's in the spring, it helps center that, okay? When it bends, it wants to push that leg against the spring. What that's causing is two things. The grittiness, that's what you're feeling, is that the leg rubbing against the spring, that sharp edge of the leg, which these are pretty sharp. You can see the silver right there, which is worn off the coating because it's just rubbing away at the spring. So by doing this, you're going to reduce the gritty feeling, and then also you're going to lower the pull weight because there's less friction, okay? So excellent upgrade. Many different things you can do to a trigger to help improve it, and everybody has their own taste. Some like shorter trigger pulls, crisper trigger pulls, lighter trigger pulls. So this is definitely helping on the lower trigger pull and smooth trigger as well, okay? So that is the spring shoulder. Next we'll talk about the lower leg, how that's been modified. Okay, so the lower leg on the strut is another area that has been modified, and what I mean by that, it has been recontoured. So on the Superstrut, you can see this back edge here has all been rounded, compared to the back side of it, which has two sharp edges, which does not matter because it doesn't contact the spring anyway. It's just this edge over here, which does all the contact if it's going to contact it, compared to the factory one, where you can see all the sharp edges, all four of them, and you can actually see where it contacts the silver edge here. It has actually worn the finish off the hammer strut. Okay, so this has been recontoured to the inside radius shape of a spring. So if there is any contact, now the contact has been spread out over a greater, larger area, okay, versus just two sharp edges like on the factory one. And to illustrate what I'm talking about, if you take your finger and just move it across your desk, you can feel how it like binds up. All that weight in one little area isn't gonna go smoothly, versus if you put your hand smooth and kind of move it, obviously it's dissipated, goes a lot smoother. So that's the same principle here. If there is going to be contact, it's spread out over a greater area, which reduces friction, which reduces grittiness and trigger pull weight. Okay, so that's the lower leg of the hammer strut. Next we'll talk about the finish. Okay, before we move on to the material, I wanted to also add that it comes with this 20-pound Wolfe Spring, which has been ground and polished, which is, when used with the Superstrut, is going to even further decrease the amount of friction, which will get rid of a lot of that grittiness and lower trigger pull weight. So I'm noticing when I'm playing with this here, right here, this just kind of, it'll fall right off. Okay, on my factory one, it doesn't fall right off because that sharp edge on the spring shoulder is just cut its way into the spring, essentially just holding it there. Okay, the spring guide specifically, the sharp edges on that, which you saw in the pictures I posted earlier, how sharp and jagged that is. It's just kind of, even when you go to pull it off for the first time, a lot of times that spring's really on there and it's like, and it comes off. Okay, so this being all redesigned, smoothed out and everything, that's not happening. Okay, so it's made from 4140 steel and has a nickel boron nitride coating. Okay, so if you could feel this right now, it's like glass. It is just so smooth, like silky smooth. Okay, so when people are doing trigger jobs and they're polishing their parts, this is the finish you're after. If you can even get close to this, you'd be doing a good job. So what this finish is doing is making everything super slick, decreasing the friction. Not only that, but it's hardened the material as well. Okay, this is actually the hammer strut that they used in testing. So thousands of rounds have already been fired using this hammer strut, and it looks brand new. There is not one single scratch or wear or gouge or anything on this hammer strut. If you look at my factory one, I don't know how old it is, but I mean, I've scratched that up, basically messing around with this. But I mean, you can see all the wear on it from the rounds it's fired. It's in pretty rough shape, so I should probably get a new one of those, but actually I'll be getting more of these. So that coating, the finish, second to none. It's a very nice quality product. What does this fit? Good question. P6, P225, P226, P227, 228, 229, M11, Mark 25, P226 X5, P226 X6. This will not fit a 220, okay? I talked to him last night, and within the month, he said, it's being made right now. There'll be a kit available for the 220. So what I want to do is I want to put this back into the pistol, and then I'll show you some side-by-side comparisons about how it actually sits in the pistol. Okay, so both hammer struts have been reinstalled into the 226 and 228, and first we'll talk about this one really quick, just to show you the bend in that spring. Okay, it's unavoidable. It's the angle of the spring shoulder on the hammer strut. It makes the spring do that. There's nothing you can do about it. So like I mentioned before, if you see that, or even if you take your spring out, you can see that spring is just bent like a noodle, a macaroni. It is what it is. So The Superstrut, which you can see sits perfectly straight. Okay, whether it's cocked or not, it's perfectly straight. And this is a good one to look at. You can see the leg on that strut inside the spring. You can see how close it is to this side of the spring with the frame side versus this side over here. So they didn't recontour the back side here because it's irrelevant. It's not going to contact the spring anyway. If there's going to be any contact, it's going to be on this side. So by reshaping that, basically the edges are further away from the spring. Okay, so there's the possibility of contact has been reduced. And if it does contact the spring, because of the contour is shaped to the inside radius of the spring, now it's basically spread that contact area over a bigger footprint, which reduces friction. Okay, less friction, less grittiness, decreased trigger pull weight. So there you have it, the Superstrut by the Sig Armorer. The P series pistols, they've been around forever, and it was really great to see companies still coming out with upgrades that improve the function of these pistols. So hats off to him. If you're interested in this product, it will be released next week. Just jump over to his website, check it out, order a bunch. I love it, highly recommend it. Sig Sauer Guy here. As always, thank you for watching and have a good day.